Army veteran Alex Plitsas. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a Bronze Star Medal recipient and volunteers with the Afghan Evacuation Coalition. Alex also helped evacuate hundreds of Afghans following the U.S. withdrawal of troops. Alex, I want to get your reaction, and hopefully you can enlighten a little bit. These documents NewsNation obtained show that U.S. officials knew exactly where these ISIS-K terrorists were hiding and planning this attack, but that a drone strike to take them out was, quote, infeasible due to negative response. Why did the military feel it needed the Taliban's permission to take out ISIS-K?
Well, thanks for having me. I think the question is spot on, and the preceding segment, from my understanding, both events at the time on the ground as well as subsequently, is 100% accurate. We effectively created a strategic choke point. We gave up Bagram airfield months before the withdrawal, and we were stuck with Kabul, single runway, and only so many access points. I was a civilian, completely out of government, no longer having a security clearance at that point, but word had circulated in the community of those helping, 2 days prior, that there was a suicide bombing threat at the airport. So we actually had about 50 Americans, both green card holders and citizens, that we had in local national vehicles trying to access the airport. And when we got word of the threat, we actually moved them to the other side, because we had deduced the most likely strike point at that would be Abbey Gate, because that's where the State Department was sending all American citizens at that point. So, not just the military, even the volunteers on the outside, including people without clearances at that point, because the physical threat to folks on the ground had become aware that there was a suicide bombing threat. So, everybody and their mother that was involved at that point knew that there was something coming. And we did the best we could to move American citizens away from that location. To include having one of the husbands of the families actually called me up and cursed at me for not sending his family through the gate. He subsequently called back and apologized about an hour after the bombing happened. But it was an awful situation.
But given your military background and given the fact that you were one of the many people who knew exactly what was going on intimately in Afghanistan when all this was going down, people are going, why didn't we just launch our own drone strike? Why did the Taliban say it was, it's infeasible because they would be displeased? I'm unclear as to why the United States, the most powerful military on earth, is taking orders from the Taliban in essence.
It is quite perplexing. So Chris Donahue, the commanding general at the time, who's now the 18th Airborne Commander, 3-star, former Delta Force commander, one of the most proficient tactical leaders that we have. I have no doubt that if he had been given permission, he would have acted. So I'm not sure where the call was made. But if we had intelligence that specific, that they were in a hotel at a specific location, that begs the question as to why no strike took place. It was a very precarious situation at the airport. There was a discussion that was had that was, effectively with the Taliban leadership, either, you secure Kabul or we're going to have to, which would require an entire division plus coming back in, 25,000 troops. There was no way that the Taliban were going to allow that. And they said, okay, effectively, you're responsible for security outside the airport. We'll handle it. An agreement was made that at the end of the 31st, everyone would be gone, and the Taliban were responsible for outside. And so I know, there were a few helicopter missions that went outside the base to pick people up. That was not well received back in Washington. I think folks were very much afraid of a Black Hawk Down situation, was what I had heard. Nobody wanted those images on the news. And so, yes, I do think that there was an optics problem where folks were concerned about those types of actions outside. And if the intelligence was that specific with a location and a cell and known time and intended, effect, that's what they were going to do, inaction is inexcusable.
Yeah, there are plenty of times, and we can talk about them throughout history, where our intelligence services have been wrong. Obviously, in Iraq, about weapons of mass destruction. Here,
yes,
they were right. They were so right. They knew the exact address where they were building the suicide bombing vest. They knew exactly the date. They knew almost to the hour the exact time of the attack. And the mere fact that for days they all knew that, people like yourself who were helping evacuate people knew that, knew it was coming, heard it was coming. It's in one of the reports I read from these documents, the intelligence channels were humming with all the high alerts and red alerts. Everybody knew it was coming. I can't understand, and I'm sure the Gold Star families, who I'm about to speak to in a moment, can't understand why somebody didn't just launch a drone strike.
It doesn't make any sense to me either. Let's not forget, we did have one drone strike that, that took place. It was obviously the wrong folks. They were civilians. We found out afterwards, and people died as a result of that strike. And then
that
we
was
didn't
after
strike
the bombing, though.
Precisely, and so that was the one that was missed. So we missed the actual cell, and then we ended up targeting civilians afterwards. So the apprehension, I mean, when you go into those types of situations, a commander is going to be given an intelligence picture that says, hey, here's what the threat looks like. The operations team will say, hey, here are your options on the table. And then you're going to recommend a course of action based on, risk and potential outcome. And at some point in the chain, somebody has to give approval. So I think the question that needs to be asked at this point, who knew about this? Where was the final approval authority, and what was the reason that this was denied? Because based on the reporting that you've just provided, and it matches everything that I've heard, there is no good reason why that strike did not take place.
Well, and based on the documents that we're reading, it clearly shows that many of the commanders who were on the ground there were asking for permission, or asking the Taliban, which had promised, if you stay out of Kabul, we'll keep it safe and secure. We'll keep things under control. Don't mess with us. We won't mess with you. That was the deal that was made. And yet, we knew this was happening on the territory that Taliban controlled. We asked the Taliban to raid that hotel and stop this. They didn't. We asked the Taliban if we could launch our own drone strike. They were displeased. And then the Taliban condemns the suicide bombing after the fact.
I mean, it doesn't quite make sense in that regard. Like you said, if we knew that the threat picture was there, if they refused to act, I mean, at that point, if it's a threat to U.S. forces, it's a strategic choke point. I think there could have been some strategic calculus that went on that, hey, if we do a strike now, are we then going to shut down the rest of the evacuation? That was the 26th, the 31st. We had 5 more days going on. Is the intelligence picture clear enough to justify a strike, to go ahead and take those folks out, and then weighing that against well, what do we do with the other 100,000 people that are stuck outside? Somebody eventually made the wrong call.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.